Hi everyone, Cherie here from Ashima Living. I help busy, burnt out mums overcome anxiety and low mood naturally and without nasty side effects using clinical nutrition, herbal medicine, yoga and mindfulness. And today I wanted to talk about postpartum anxiety and how you can either prevent this if you're pregnant or the best practices to try and prevent this if you're pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant, or if you are already experiencing it, holistic ways you can overcome it. So a lot of us have heard, well, I think everyone has heard of postpartum depression. It's unfortunately very common. 1 in 7 new mums will experience PPD. But postpartum anxiety is even more common, but much less well known. So 1 in 5 new mothers will experience postpartum anxiety. So this isn't just, experiencing the normal kind of stress of having a baby, which is a stressful thing. It is really where this stress is interfering with your day-to-day functioning. So it can show up in different ways for different women, but some of the symptoms are irrational fears or worries that you can't get out of your head, so intrusive thoughts, experiencing an inability to concentrate, so like extreme kind of brain fog, feeling irritable or agitated, feeling really tense in your muscles and body, feeling restless and like this constant feeling of being on edge, or this constant feeling of like dread or doom. Having a racing heart or strong palpitations, or even full-blown panic attacks, which can be really scary. Unable to sleep. I know it's hard to sleep anyway with a baby, but even when you finally get that opportunity to sleep and you know how tired you are, you just can't switch off and sleep. And also avoiding certain situations because you fear something might happen. So these are all different ways that postpartum anxiety can show up. Now, risk factors. To be honest, any new mum is at risk of postpartum anxiety, but particularly if you have a history of anxiety or a family history, if you have experienced birth trauma, which is also really common, or any other trauma in general in your life. If you have got like an A-type personality where you are, quite a warrior, a perfectionist, you're someone that needs to have a lot of control in your life, that can predispose you to PPA as well. But the contributing factors, it's usually a blend of different factors that just create the perfect storm to experience anxiety at this time of life. So some of them are physical, there are mental and emotional factors, and there are cultural and environmental factors as well. So I'm going to go through all of these. Physically, probably the biggest thing is hormones. If you've been watching my last couple of lives this month where I've been talking about women's hormones and their impact of mental health, you will have learned how progesterone, it actually works on our GABA receptors, and GABA is our most calming, sedating, relaxing neurotransmitter. So if you're low in progesterone, this can mean that you are more prone to experiencing irritability, anxiety, even sleep problems. So when you are pregnant, you actually have quite a lot of progesterone. It's one of the reasons we can feel really sleepy and snoozy when we're pregnant. And a lot of people feel quite relaxed when they're pregnant. But the moment you have given birth to the placenta, your progesterone, it drops, and it doesn't, the ovaries don't start producing it again until your first period comes back, which for some women can be a long time. So that lack of progesterone from some women can have a massive impact on their brains and their moods. Obviously, lack of sleep in and of itself is enough to really kind of destabilize the nervous system and make you more prone to anxiety and get those cortisol levels really high. Another big one is postnatal depletion. So this is really like nutritional depletion. So when you are building a baby, you are just giving all of your minerals and nutrients to that baby to produce this incredible human, and you can end up really, really low. And these nutrients are essential not just for your energy and physical well-being, but your mental health as well. So, and particularly if you're breastfeeding, like you needed a lot of nutrients to build that baby, you need even more to produce breast milk every day. Your body is really at the coalface, nutritionally speaking, when you're breastfeeding. And if you have had 2 or 3 babies in a short amount of time, you know, just a few years, and you haven't taken the time to build up those depleted minerals, then, you know, by that 2nd or 3rd baby, you are like a shell of yourself, nutritionally speaking, in terms of what you have given out. So it's really, really important to build those back up. They can really help with the stress response. Even in PTSD, it's been studied that getting your micronutrients high, it can really help deal with trauma as well. So don't underestimate the effect it has on your mental health as well as physical health. Physically speaking, the other thing is thyroid. For a lot of women, the big hormonal change and the stress after childbirth can actually interfere with their thyroid, and that can also affect mental health as well. So they're some of the more common physical factors, you know, contributing to postpartum anxiety. Some of the emotional, mental ones, you know, a big one I guess this is also cultural, is this pressure to be perfect, to be 100% willingly self-sacrificing, and for, you know, this expectation that having a baby is blissfully wonderful and you're going to be happy all the time. And that is just not reality, and it's quite taboo to talk about that. So a lot of women don't have that support when, you know, it can even be a rude awakening if they aren't aware that it can be like this after they have a baby. So that pressure is a big one. This is another topic we don't really talk about, which is unprocessed grief and transition anxiety. So anytime we go through a really big transition in life, we are going to be more prone to anxiety because change is scary for humans. And having a baby is a massive change on all levels of our life. So just that alone, and the fact that we can't control it, is enough to produce anxiety. But also underneath that anxiety is often different emotions like fear, resentment, grief, because we are losing, there is a loss involved. We're losing our old life, we're losing our old selves, we're losing the relationship that we had with our partner. Even though we're not losing the relationship, it's going to be irreversibly changed. And if we don't process all of those emotions, or if we're not even aware that we could feel these emotions, once that baby arrives, you know, it can really hit us like a ton of bricks. By the way, I have a 9-month-old baby, so a lot of this is really fresh for me. So I think it's a really important topic to talk about. And I'm going to talk about how what I did to prevent having anxiety after my baby too, because I've had anxiety in the past and I was really worried that it would come back, which thankfully it didn't. But I think it was because of a lot of things I put in place. So anyway, that unprocessed grief and transition anxiety, birth trauma. 1 in 3 women have birth trauma. And this isn't necessarily because they had a particularly, traumatic birth process. Birth trauma can really be about your feelings of how you were cared for during the birth. So if you were not cared for in the way that you needed and wanted, that can be a traumatic experience. And that is a very, very common thing, because even though we have a wonderful medical system in terms of saving lives and that kind of thing, especially for emergencies, that emotional care is not always what it should be for new mums, and that can be quite traumatic as well. Also, once we have a baby, emotionally speaking, it can bring up past issues from our own childhood, our own family of origin, how we were parented. It can, affect relationships with our families. It's often a time where we need to have really strong boundaries. There can be a lot of that stuff going on as well. And of course, it can put a lot of stress on our relationship with our partner as well. So that's some of the emotional, mental factors. And then the cultural, environmental ones. We really don't have a culture of support for new mothers in the West. We're not living in those idealized tribes where everyone is taking care of the baby, taking care of the mother. We're living in these very tiny, isolated family units most of the time without a lot of support. There is an expectation to be back at work as quickly as possible. And I think we really glamorize this, super mom hero mentality where it's like, oh, I was doing my emails right after I popped the baby out, or I went shopping the week after, or I went to, I was back at work within 4 weeks, whatever it is. And some countries as well, particularly the United States, really do not offer enough time off. So we don't have this culture of resting and of supporting new mothers, which other cultures do have. And I'm going to go into how you can set up something similar for yourself if you are pregnant as well. Or even if you've had the baby, how you can bring that in a little bit more. So I think that's a big issue as well. So if you have already had your baby and you are experiencing postpartum anxiety, some of the things that can help are making sure that you are addressing both the physical and the emotional side of it. So I would recommend getting yourself a naturopath or a functional medical practitioner and a therapist, and the two together is a really good team. So you want to be looking at that postnatal nutritional support, getting all of those levels of everything up to support your nervous system, to support your stress response, to give you the raw ingredients for all of your neurotransmitters again, to help with your energy and to kind of offset the damage that lack of sleep can cause, and even support PTSD if that's something that you're experiencing. So that's really, really helpful. Diet is absolutely a game changer. So I know this is a time of life when it's really easy to just grab a piece of toast and drink coffee. But that is not going to cut it if you're experiencing postpartum anxiety or even postpartum full stop. This is a time to really be nourishing yourself. So you want to be, first of all, with anxiety and diet, you want to make sure you have a diet that is keeping your blood sugar levels really stable, because anytime they go too high or too low, this will set off your stress response. You're going to release more cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And when your cortisol is already high from lack of sleep and everything else, this is enough to tip you over the edge. So lots of protein, lots of healthy fats, eating regularly. I actually have a comprehensive anti-anxiety diet, which is great to implement. You can either find that on my socials or message me and I'll send you the link. And I know it's hard at that time to be preparing meals, so I recommend getting support. Ask your partner to batch cook and freeze food. Organize a healthy meal delivery service, like a paleo one would be quite good if you are postpartum. There are postpartum doulas that often organize a service like this where they provide nourishing meals to women once they've had babies. But yeah, I would prioritize that. And then other ways a naturopath can help with herbal medicine. So herbs are really, really great because we can provide herbs that are safe in breastfeeding if you are breastfeeding, that can do a range of things. So first of all, supporting your hormone levels. There are herbs that act like progesterone and can sit on the progesterone receptors, so can help kind of ease that really big progesterone drop that can affect the nervous system. There are herbs that can help your resilience to stress so that you are more resilient to stress. And there's herbs that actually calm the nervous system as well and help calm anxiety. So there is a lot that can be done with herbal medicine as well. So that's the kind of physical side of it. So I recommend seeing a naturopath for that. The mental and emotional side, I recommend seeing a therapist. Processing some of those emotions, dealing with some of those fears or intrusive thoughts. Mindfulness is really, really effective. That is well studied, and you only need 10 minutes a day. And I know 10 minutes is a lot when you have a baby as well. But what I was doing after my baby was doing my mindfulness meditation while I was breastfeeding, just doing a guided one. Even 10 minutes is enough to kind of just turn that dial down on the stress response. So there's lots of free ones out there, lots of ones on YouTube. If you check out my channel, Ashima Living, there's a whole bunch on there. There's also apps like Headspace. But yeah, make it easy, integrate it into your daily life with your baby. Yoga, again, well studied, really good for just switching off that stress response. Even if you do 5-10 minutes, a couple of restorative poses, legs up the wall pose or child's pose with some music, just taking that time to actively relax. If you can go to a mum and bubs class, or even better, if you can have the baby looked after for an hour, go and do a restorative yoga class. So don't go and do anything like vinyasa, anything crazy. Not that vinyasa is crazy, but anything too active. A restorative class with lots of props, blankets, where you're just holding the poses in really comfortable, relaxing positions. This is ideal, even once a week, to really help deal with the stress. And the other thing I can recommend, and I'm not an affiliate or anything, but this is a course that I did. There's a psychotherapist in America called Cheryl Paul that specializes in transitional anxiety, and she has a program called Birthing a New Mother, and I did this when I was pregnant. You can do it after the baby as well, and it's really good for just coming to terms with that shift in identity, going through the emotions of just grieving your old life and just kind of processing that so it's out of the way. I found that really, really helpful, so that I was then kind of ready to embrace this new aspect of life. And then every country has different organizations as well that you can reach out to, especially if you're in crisis. So PANDA, I think that's Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia, something like that. There's COPE, there's Lifeline, but whatever country you're in, just research which organizations are there available to you. So that's what to do if you already have postpartum anxiety. If you are pregnant or thinking of having a baby, and particularly if you are already an anxiety sufferer and you want to prevent, more issues after you've had the baby, this is what I wanted to do. I've suffered from severe anxiety in the past, and I do a lot of kind of self-care to make sure that it doesn't come back. And I was worried that once I had the baby, it could come back. But thankfully, everything that I've done has kind of, made sure that it hasn't manifested again. So I would recommend, if you are pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, get your mindfulness and your nutrition in order now. So start a mindfulness practice. Do 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day, and start learning how to regulate your own nervous system and detach from, stressful thoughts, because mindfulness is such a great life skill. So I would learn that now, develop a practice now, and then it's easier once you already have the baby. Start eating an anti-anxiety diet. So like I said, download my free diet, message me for the link, or find it on my social profiles, and start getting that in place. Start building up your nutrient levels. See a naturopath, get on a good either preconception or pregnancy protocol, and get those nutrient levels really, really high so that you're not completely depleted once the baby's here. Now, this subject I love, which is pregnancy support, getting proper support during pregnancy. So everyone's different, but what I did during my pregnancy was I hired a doula. So a doula is someone who is there to support you during the pregnancy and the birth, and often postpartum as well. My doula taught hypnobirthing, so I did hypnobirthing, which I felt really helped me not be anxious about the birth, and I ended up having a really, really positive, amazing birth experience, which I really feel hypnobirthing had a lot to do with. I wasn't afraid. I was able to stay calm. I personally went through a midwifery program rather than a hospital, so I was actually going to have a home birth, but my baby was measuring too big, so I had to go to the birth center, but that was still preferable for me than the hospital. So I had a really calm birth in the pool. This midwifery program meant that I had an assigned midwife or 2 midwives all through my pregnancy, during the birth, postpartum. So I had that continuity of care, which I think is really important, especially for me. I'm more of a private, sensitive person. I wanted to have people there that I had a relationship with and that I trusted. I didn't want to walk into this brightly lit hospital when I'm in this vulnerable state and just be assigned to whoever on the day. So I really found that helpful. And then postpartum. So I don't know if you have heard of the golden month, but in a lot of, sorry, I can't see. Wondering if that's a message. No, it's not. That's okay. I thought it was one of the viewers sending a message. So postpartum, I love the concept of the golden month. So I first heard of this actually because I used to run retreats in Nepal, and I remember some of my Tibetan friends telling me that when they have a baby, they have like a month or more at home getting cared for by their mothers or the other women in their families. They're kept warm. They rest in bed. They get massages every day. They get fed nourishing foods. It's really this dedicated time to just support the mother so that all she has to do is focus on bonding with the baby and rest and sleep when she can. And I know we don't have that culture, but you can kind of set that up as much as you can. And that's what I did. So I pre-cooked literally a month's worth of really, really healthy, nourishing foods. So you want to have really warming foods, easily digested foods like soups and stews with things like ginger and cinnamon, like warming spices, because it's believed both in Ayurveda, in Indian traditional medicine, and in Chinese traditional medicine that after you've had a baby, you've gone from this very warm state to lots of body fluids and things happening to this very cold kind of empty state, and you want to warm the body back up. And interestingly, in traditional Chinese medicine, they believe that how a woman is cared for in that first month after birth will determine to a large extent her health and vitality for the rest of her life. So it's such an important time in other cultures. So I really set up this month so that I wasn't going anywhere. I had to, unfortunately, go to a lactation consultant meeting once, but otherwise I would have not left the house at all. I was basically in bed or on the couch. Food was done, and it was just a time to rest. I didn't do any housework. It was really about focusing on myself and the baby. And again, you can hire a postpartum doula to help with this kind of thing as well, or get a meal delivery service if you can't cook all of those meals yourself. But I just recommend having that organized and not having this expectation that you should be back doing stuff. You should be socializing. You should be out going shopping and bouncing back, because it's such a big thing, giving birth to a baby and then looking after a newborn. Just give yourself that gift of rest and nourishment immediately after the birth for 4 to 6 weeks if you can. And then after that, don't forget about self-care beyond that. I know how hard it is time-wise, but even something once a week, get a massage, go have a coffee or a tea by yourself. Just get out on your own and remember who you are as an individual without the baby, and do something that is really nourishing for yourself. That's really important. Connect to other people, connect to other mums. Speak about, the not so glamorous side of it. Speak about if you're struggling, and reach out for help as well. And I really feel if we had this standard of care, like for birth and postpartum, and particularly the golden month, I really feel that we would see less postpartum anxiety if we did this. But yeah, so those are my recommendations. Address the physical and the mental and emotional. Get as much support as you can. If you are struggling with postpartum anxiety, or if you are pregnant and you want to start preparing yourself nutritionally and physically, this is what I do. I offer free intro naturopathic consultations via phone or online video. So feel free to message me and you can book one of those in if you like. As I mentioned, you can get my free anti-anxiety diet, which is a great place to start whether you're pregnant or already experiencing PPA. So I will link that to this talk afterwards. Otherwise, just message me and I can send you the link if you can't find it. Okay, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I'm happy to answer them. Thanks so much.